Hello. Today I would like to talk about IAM within Amazon Web Services. IAM is nothing but Identity and Access Management. Before I jump in, I'd like to give some insights about IAM. What exactly is IAM? There are three things that comes to my mind. First one, identification. Second one, authentication. Third one, authorization. Identification, who exactly you are. Authentication, what is the proof that you say who you are. And authorization, what are the services available to you, what are the things that you have access to, is authorization. So basically, the concept of IAM is pretty straightforward and uh, an easy to understand concept. So I'm just going to real quick jump into Amazon Web Services and walk you through IAM interface. So this way you have the visual understanding of what I'm speaking about. So I'm just going to quickly sign into my root account. I'm just going to quickly access my management console of AWS. So in here, I'm just going to click on services, and there are a bunch of services that are available provided by Amazon Web Services. So don't get overwhelmed by seeing all these services. Let's just real quick jump into IAM. So I'm just going to search for IAM, and then you should be able to click on IAM, and this is the home page of identity and access management within Amazon Web Services. So the first thing that you see is basically the dashboard. Dashboard is where you see some of the key things, right? So one thing is sign in URL for IAM users in this account. So basically, I signed in myself as a root account. Uh, so that's the main account where you usually use to sign up for uh, Amazon Access, Amazon Web Services Access. So in here, you should be able to see the resources available for IAM. The first one is users, groups, and then roles, identity providers, and then custom managed policies. So these are the five main things that I would like to focus on today with respect to access management. I'm just going to quickly walk you through every resource available, uh, and then how we can leverage those resources as we speak through. So with that said, I'm just gonna real quick uh, rephrase here. So I'm just gonna first go into users. So this is where I would like to, create users, basically delete users or update users with respect to access control, with respect to, accessing the interface via the console, via the management console, or via programmatically access. So let me just walk you through just creating one user here as a test user, uh, just to better understand the scenario of what I'm speaking about. So I'm just going to create one user, test O1, and then I can I'd like to give programmatic access as well as management console access. So with that said, uh, this specific user, test01, should be able to log into Amazon Web Services Management Console, just like I logged in with my root account credentials, as well as programmatic access with access key ID and then the secret access key. So I'm just going to click on permissions. Next, which is basically allows you to associate permissions with the specific user account. So with this specific user, I do not have any groups created. So I'm just gonna real quick create a group right from here. So this way, that would be the second thing that I would like to cover in this topic today. So I'm just gonna create a group. Let's say I have a bunch of architects. So I'm just gonna create an architect group. So this way, it's just gonna allow me to give the respective permissions for the specific group, um, and then associate a bunch of users to this specific group. So this way, every user associated with this group has all the permissions associated uh, for this group. So with that said, I'm just gonna give a basic permission that is by default provided by Amazon Web Services. As you see here, there are almost 637 different policies that were provided by AWS. So I'm just gonna real quick create uh, associate a policy to this specific group. I'm just gonna real quick give administrator access. I'm just gonna give you the basic understanding of the policy and stuff in a bit here. With that said, I'm just gonna create a group giving this specific policy, which is administrator access. Basically, it tells or it associates the user with various services that are available within Amazon Web Services. Uh, Basically, it's just kind of a full administrator access, right? So basically, the policy is nothing but the permission. So I'm just going to explain the policy here in a bit, but I'm just going to create a group right now. So with that said, I created a group and then I am going to add test01 user to the specific architect group and then click on tags. And then it's just more about key value pays that you can add to the user. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as optional. So I'm just going to review. And then with that said, that specific user test01 is added to architects group, and then that specific user is created. So as the user is created, as you see here, you see the access key ID and the secret access key, as well as the password were also created or auto-generated. So I'm just going to download if that specific user test01 would like to log in, and then he needs some specific set of things to log in. The first one is basically the sign-in URL, which allows them to provide the account number as well as the username, and then of course the password, which is basically right here. This is the password. So that's via programmatic access. But if they would like to perform any kind of management within AWS via programmatically, then they'll need to use the access key ID as well as secret access key to ensure that they perform or execute the services that they need to within the AWS environment. So with that said, I'm just going to real quick close this. So as you see here, that's the first user that I have created within my main account, which is basically the root account. And I have created I also created a group while I am creating the user account. So I have a group named architect group, which has administrator access, and then that specific policy is associated with that group. And then as you create users, you can add bunch of users to this group. So this way, everyone has administrator access. So with that said, we have completed groups and then users. I'm just going to real quick go on roles here and just talk about a bit, and then we'll go on policies. So a role is nothing but it's a way to grant permissions for the entities that you trust, as you see right here. So what does it mean? So for me, it's more about the services, the accounts that you wanted to have access to your Amazon account, whichever that you trust, right? So basically, the users within another account would like to have access to your account, which is the current account that you're currently seeing on the screen, or any other account that you created, or maybe an application or code that's running on EC2 instance that needs to perform any kind of action on AWS resources, or an AWS services that needs to act on resources in your account to provide its features, or users from a corporate directory who use identity federation with SAML and stuff. So with that said, I'm just going to real quick create a role. So basically, I would like to just create a service to service trust identity access. So this way, Let's say, for example, some of the common use cases that I see is basically, an EC2 instance that needs to, push some data to S3. S3 is nothing but simple storage services within Amazon Web Services. So I'm just going to create a simple use case, like let's say, for example, a role with an EC2 instance accessing the whole S3 bucket, right? So I'm just going to real quick search for S3 policy, and then give full access, and then review, and then just going to create a role name, right? So EC2 to S3 full access, right? So with that said, I'm just going to create this role. So this role will allow the EC2 instances to fully access the S3 buckets or S3 application or service within AWS environment at any point in time. With that said, of course, it has its own mechanism with respect to, short token policy and stuff, but we're not going to in depth about the access management with respect to roles. But, with that said, again, just to recap here, role is nothing but, it's a secure way to grant permissions to entities that you trust, right? You trust your EC2 instances, you trust, another account user to have access to this account, or you trust any service within, AWS that you wanted to give access to any of the resources within your account. So that's the reason why where we gonna use roles. And with that said, let's just real quick jump into the policies. So policy is nothing but a specific permission that you would like to associate or give to users or groups within your AWS instance, within your AWS account. So real quick, I'm just going to walk you through one of the policy. The policies are basically JSON objects. So basically, JSON is nothing but JavaScript object notation. So it's a JSON file where you see some bunch of parentheses and with close and open and close brackets. Um, um, so it's just going to return in kind of a key value pair, right? So you basically, this is the key, this is the value, and of course it could just be a nested JSON, as you see here. With that said, so I'm just gonna real quick point out or highlight three important things, right? So the effect and the action, and then the resource. So effect is nothing but, you're basically telling in the policy that, this policy, if associated with any user or a group, has some specific allow or deny kind of scenario, right? So in this scenario, I just want to allow an action. An action in here is basically a star mark, which basically says that, can do anything within this for the specific user can, a specific group or user can do anything within the AWS instance or account that they have access to. But the resource tells us what are the things that this specific user or group has access to. Like in this case, it's star mark again, which tells us that, if this specific permission, this policy is associated with any user or group, as the highest access control within the AWS instance. So this specific policy is just going to dictate that that specific user or group has access to all the resources and can do any kind of action. Basically, we are allowing them. We can explicitly configure it to deny, to but there is no point of creating that specific policy. In that cases, you do not want to, just don't create a user account, right? So in this case, we just wanted to allow them. So the policy summary basically says that, whatever the resources, as you see here, there are 264 services within AWS, and then all the services can be accessed by the specific user um, with all the resources with full access level. And of course, the access level can be break down into list or read or write or get, uh, some basic scenarios. With that said, that's a real quick walk you uh, walkthrough of identity and access management within Amazon Web Services. You can always create new policies. You can do via Visual Editor. It's one of the easiest way to do. And if you know the syntax of JSON, and if you know the terminology within AWS, and you can always um, uh, create your policy, custom policy, by writing your JSON script. So I'm just going to real quick walk you through creating custom policy, right? Let's say I just want to create a custom policy to, you know, to have my EC2 instance, sorry, right? And then I'd like to have uh, just the read permissions. So this way, um, if I were to associate this policy to a specific user, they only have access to the EC2 service, and the actions are basically just to read things, right? So basically, they would like to say, let's say, get password data, or describe tags. They would like to just you know go things, or just to see things, just to read things from that specific instance, from the specific service. And of course, excuse me. And of course, you can always associate, if the specific policy needs an MFA, or only specific IPs are allowed to access, or, basically do specific actions from a specific IP address range. You can always do that. You can always specify the IP range. You can always say it requires a MFA for the specific console users to access the resources, the specified resources or service. So with that said, I'm just gonna real quick review the policy. Uh, of course, you can just specify all resources here for now, and then review the policy, and then just gonna give the policy name to be EC2 read only access policy, right? So this specific service and access level is basically only read to all the resources. I'm just going to create the policy now. So that's how you just create a basic custom policy within AWS. So I'm just going to real quick search for that policy here, EC2 read only access policy. So as you see here, this is where, as a customer, that you manage the specific policy, along with the AWS managed policies that were by default um, created within your AWS account. So again, just to real quick walk you through the basic things, right? So as an end user, if I were to sign in, and then I'm just gonna, since I just created this test O1, I should be able to log in with the test O1 credentials, username, and password. So as an end user, we'll need to provide the sign in URL. So this way they have access to the URL, and then AWS recognizes which specific account that specific user has access to via the sign in URL. And of course, there are a bunch of things associated with access reports and identity provider, let's say, for example, you don't want to have your users, you know, uh, log in via AWS. You just wanted to, you have your own identity provider like Okta, for example, or whatever the SAML supported scenarios that you have got. You know, you can basically provision users right out of the box, and then of course, manage access control within your AWS account. Um, with that said, uh, I'm just gonna end this video real quick. It's pretty straightforward. IAM, identity and access management. This is one of the service within AWS to summarize, and then it's the first thing that you wanted to touch as you created your root account within AWS, the first sign up after your first sign up. So this way you provide access control, and of course create user accounts for login and scenarios. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you all got some valuable information here. With that said, I'll end this session. Bye now.